Command points win games, but most people waste them. Here are 5 CP mistakes that could be costing you the win. Mistake 1. The command point reroll. This video is in part brought to you by Baron of Dice. Use my code Odyssey at checkout to get 5% off and use my affiliate link down below. Cheers. So firstly, I just want to briefly talk about the fact that command points are a resource and you have to utilize them as such. A few of these things are going to be about budgeting and planning for your command points for your turn. But firstly, the most biggest mistake that I see is just worthless or very, very low chance or very low impact command point rerolls. Command point reroll is an ability that allows you to reroll a hit, a wound, a damage, or advance roll, or a charge roll. It's a great asset to have access to, but it is not something that you should be planning to use pretty much ever. It should be one of these things that in a situation where, hey, if I roll a 3 up here, it's going to blow out this game, which doesn't happen very often, but I see so often people rerolling a 4 up invulnerable save, or rerolling a damage roll that was already a 3 because I needed a 5 to get it. I was like, well, you're gonna waste a CP on a 1 in 3 chance to do it? Yeah, sure, like a third of the time it's gonna work, but the rest is just not. Save that CP for a more high impact effect later in the game. And also, so many people just waste time thinking about using a command point reroll. Like, oh, do I reroll this hit, or do I wait to see if I can reroll a damage roll? And then they don't reroll the hit, and then they roll the wounds. They fail one of their wounds. Like, oh, now do I roll it here? And you can waste minutes of your clock time in a competitive game thinking about if you want to use a strat or not. Like, just 9 times out of 10, don't do it, right? Like, it's more likely than not that you shouldn't be using it. So think about it that way. It's like, unless this one roll flips the game from you winning to from you losing to you winning, or vice versa, or if it pushes you really far ahead in the game, but that just doesn't happen very often. So just don't do it. So when do you use CP rerolls then? It's like, charge rolls is a really good option. Like, hey, I'm going to do 3 charges this turn. There's 2 5s and a 6. I'm going to roll the 6 first. If I hit it, then I have a free reroll. I have a free reroll on one of the other charges, or I can use it on the more riskier charge, which is the 6. Or if you need to do like a 9-inch charge for whatever reason it might be, you shouldn't really be ever trying to do a 9-inch charge, but sometimes it comes up in games. There's a good use often for making a charge a lot more reliable, because 2 attempts at a 9 or an 8 or a 6 or a 5 or a 4 is much better than having 1 attempt at it. So that's a fairly good use case, but you definitely still want to budget for it. And then again, as I said earlier, as soon as if that dice roll will win you the tempo in the game. And what I mean by tempo is, hey, if this guy lives and I get some extra points because of this, or it stops my opponent from being able to fall back and do anything on their turn, all this kind of things that can win you tempo in a game, which can win you the game in the long term. So that's a really important time to be able to think about using a command point reroll. And then as the game progresses, I think one of the most important things is CP rerolls become more impactful on turns like 4 and 5 when there's less things alive. So a lot of the times your slower stratagems from your detachment, you might not have access to a lot of them because your units are dead, or the units that you can use them on are depleted. This is a good time to think like, okay, now the value of a CP reroll is actually a lot higher. So kind of think about those things, but throwing like turn 1, turn 2 CP rerolls are really, really rough on your CP economy for a game. Mistake 2. No CP for defense. So this whole section is about defensive stratagems, and what I mean by defensive stratagems is stratagems like squad tactics, reactive moves. So stuff like that is also, in my opinion, a defensive stratagem for the most part. Yes, you can also use it aggressively. I have a video that will be linked up above talking about reactive moves and how you can the different ways you can use them, but it's also like Armor of Contempt, the -1 AP, that's a defensive strat, -1 damage, all those kind of style things, -1 to wound. Anything like that is a defensive strat, and when you have access to them, it makes your opponent have to play slightly more, slightly differently, right? Because they have to, if they're going to send something out and you have that access to that command point to do that stratagem, they have to be like, well, if they can Armor of Contempt, these 5 guys don't on average kill this unit, so now I need to send more things out, or do I just let it live for a turn? But as soon as you use that CP, so like you gain your CP for the for your opponent's turn, they go to charge, and then they go to move, and you instantly Overwatch, or you reroll a save in the in a shooting activation before your real problem unit comes out. It gives your opponent more leniency in their turn the earlier you use your command point. So try to hold on to it for a while, because otherwise your opponent just has more knowledge in the game and they can use it in a better way. So try not to deplete your CP economy too early unless it's for a very important reason. And if you don't keep the CP, your unit's going to just die, right? Like it's a bit of an issue that if you don't have access to a defensive stratagem of some regard, and your opponent just has like, cool, mathematically, I should be able to kill this unit, this unit, this unit, this turn because you can't interact with me in any way. That's a huge issue for your army. So keeping up that that one defensive ability or reactive move or something like that, just to kind of push that side of things, can be really, really important, because it just creates these problems for your opponent. And just leaning on to the last one as well, a defensive stratagem 9 times out of 10 is better than a CP reroll. There is certain situations where, say, like Armor of Contempt on a vehicle, when you only know it's getting shot by 3 las cannons, it might actually be better to save it for like the 5-up armor save on the 1 save than having 4-ups. But again, it's very niche situations where a reroll is better than a stratagem. So like Chaos Demons, for example, having 4-up invulns and all of that stuff, sometimes the math is actually better for rerolling 1 failed save than it is to do like a defensive stratagem like reroll ones for your invulnerable saves. So stuff like that. So you got to understand your units and when a defensive stratagem or a CP is actually, because a CP is technically a defensive stratagem and a command point reroll is also a defensive stratagem in a way. You just got to realize which one is more important to have at the time. So when should you be holding defensive stratagems? And by holding, I mean like holding up the command points to be able to use these stratagems. And it's when your opponents want to push. So turns 2 and 3 are the 2 most likely turns that your opponent wants to push out and be aggressive at you, because it's when they have the most assets, so they can do the most to you, and also they can kind of like try and swing the game in their favor in those 2 turns. So the 2 biggest tempo turns at a game. So that's when you want to be able to make sure you're holding up that interrupt, that armor of contempt, the heroic interventions, all those kind of things can change how your opponent plays, because they add failure points to your opponent's plan. Another really important time to hold up command points for defensive stratagems is so you can score your primary. If you have 3 CP and you have 3 different defensive strats you can use, or 2 defensive strats and a command point reroll, your opponent's probably not going to try and dig you off that objective if you know you can just dump all that CP on there to guarantee that you're going to score that primary. That can be really rough. So stuff like that can, again, make your opponent play differently, play a bit more passive, so then you gain the tempo in the game. Now you're controlling the game, because you're forcing your opponent not to do these plays because they now think that they're inoptimal plays. And then if you scare your opponent off from even doing it in the first place, then you also don't need to spend the CP. So like you kind of get a free use out of the command points, right? It's like the invisible stratagem that everyone has access to is the threat of a stratagem itself. And then I'd say the last way that you can use defensive stratagems is to not lose board space. This also kind of comes up to the tempo side of things as well. If you want to hold up, so like a reactive move to make sure that you're not losing board space. Like, hey, if you come here, remember I can send this unit forward. I can push aggressively into you. And that might be an issue because, hey, I have 2 CP, so I have my reactive move up, and I have heroic. So if you come up to fight this unit, remember that to do that, you have to get within 9 of this unit, so then I can reactive move, and then all the steps that follow that. That kind of stuff can be really important. So that's a good way of not holding that up. So maybe you have to forego an Overwatch, even if it's quite a good Overwatch, just to make sure that you still have this primary plan, this plan in place, can be really, really important. So definitely don't ignore that. Mistake 3. Wasteful Overwatch. So Overwatch is an amazing stratagem and it can really swing games when used correctly. But so often there will be people that will be like, hey, I got these 4 anti-tank shots, you just moved your vehicle, I'm going to Overwatch you and hope I roll a 6. And then hopefully I wound, and then hopefully you fail your armor save. That's a lot that has to happen, right? Like if you're shooting like a Predator Annihilator, it has 3 shots. You're only like 50-50 chance of rolling a 6 there. Then you still have to wound. Then they still have to fail their armor save. And then you also have to roll a decent, probably like, 3+ on the damage to kill the thing. That is so much that has to happen. Why are you even risking that? Yes, it can swing the game open if it happens. And if you have a bunch of CP, like it's turn 4 and you somehow got up to like 5 or 6 CP and there's no other good Overwatches that are going to happen that turn, go for it. But I see people doing this on turns 2, turns 3, even turns 1 sometimes when they like poke a tank out. Cool. If you move that tank, I'm going to make sure I shoot it, because you shoot it on your turn, doesn't kill it. Okay, if you move it, I'm just going to Overwatch you again. Stuff like that. Like, but sometimes it's just not worth it. Like a lot of the time it's not worth it. If you have rerolls to hit or torrent weapons, that can be a really good use of them. But otherwise, really consider your other options you have. And I also see a lot of the time people are using it on like durable Overwatch, like durable units. So like, hey, I'm going to shoot all these damage to Overwatches because this is my Overwatch threat unit into that unit of Deathling Knights, and they're -1 damage and have a 2-up base save, so they'll be saving on like 3s. So you like roll all these attacks and do like 3 damage and don't even kill a Deathling Knight. Can be pretty rough, and like not understanding the actual damage output Overwatch does, which is so much less so unless you have access to either like better Overwatch or a torrent weapon or rerolls. You need to have access to a lot of these things, and it's still quite high variance because the torrent weapons are usually 1 or 2 d6 number of shots. So like you get this high variance there. Rerolls, you could still, even with rerolls, you could still just not roll 6s, right? Or just roll like 1 6 when like, oh, the averages are I get 5 or 6. You can just roll 1, right? Like it's very low odds. Like when you're only asking for 1 dice result out of the whole, out of all 6, dice happen. So you got to think about that a little bit. And the most important way that I see Overwatch getting misused is they're not planning for it. If you move your unit out and you're like, oh, I should have made sure that I could have Overwatched this unit. Oh, I guess I'll just Overwatch this unit instead. That's a lot less value. It's like when you move your units, have that conscious decision of, hey, if I don't kill this unit, or hey, if I kill this unit, can I be aimed at the unit Y over there? So then if they move, then I can Overwatch them. People don't do that, and then they either waste their Overwatch or they're using the Overwatch in the incorrect places. So really, when you're moving your shooting units, especially units that might be good at Overwatch, plan that you can, okay, cool, I'm finishing off this unit and then I'm going to aim at this unit so I can Overwatch them if they move. Awesome. And then the last way, and again, goes back to that budget, goes back to that planning, using Overwatch when you need to save CP for other stratagems. Like, oh, this is brutal. When I said like, hey, I accidentally used that Overwatch, now I don't have the heroic, so now I can't do this awesome play that I had with my fights first unit because you got excited and like, oh, that unit moves, I can actually kill it. I'm going to roll this tank into your tank. And oh, I didn't kill it. Damn, okay, now I've just lost the whole tempo of this game. Like, if you have a CP budget for certain things, make sure you're sticking to it. It is so important to be doing that in your games. It is just absolutely unreal. So when is a good time to use Overwatch? So to hold a unit in position, so it's like if you plan it and you're like, cool, I'm going to hit this unit as hard as I can. There might be a couple of your models left, but the rest of the models in that unit are not going to be able to move because if I Overwatch you, you will die. And you can be pretty confident, like if you have a decent Overwatch unit, say like Thousand Suns with the Arcane Vortex Infernal Master, if that's pointed at you, you're probably going to die if you move. So just kind of like stuff like that, like a good, like a Land Raider Redeemer, all this kind of stuff can be really good units to hold a position, hold an angle, stop an objective from being held or something like that. All this stuff can be really powerful to like deny your opponent's primary, deny all sorts of different things, deny huge places of space in the board, but you have to plan for it. You like sometimes it will just happen that it works out really nicely, sure, but if you're not planning for it, you're not using Overwatch correctly, and you can get so much more use out of it when you do actually spend the CP instead of these haphazard uses of it. And then the last thing is that Overwatch should be a threat. If it's not, don't do it. This is a pretty huge one. If your opponent's like, yeah, sure, Overwatch me, half the time, it probably means like they're not actually afraid of it. And again, if you're shooting your Predator into it and you only get 2 6s, and you get 2 6s on the last games, awesome. Cool. Oh, I only wound with 1. Okay, that's great. And now I'm going to CP the other one. So now I've wasted 2 CP on this. You've got 2 wounds. They save 1. They take 4 damage. Okay, so I didn't actually kill you. I just hurt you a little bit. You're not even bracketed yet. Ah, shit. Well, okay, keep going then. Now I don't have any CP for any of my defensive plays. That can be absolutely brutal. So make sure that when you are using Overwatch, it is a useful Overwatch and you're getting mileage out of it. A lot of the time, it is not worthwhile to add the second dice, like say re-rolling a number of shots on a weapon for the additional CP that it would cost to be able to do that. So just keep this kind of stuff in mind when you're doing this. Mistake number 4, overbuffing units. So what I mean by overbuffing units here is there's a couple of really good examples here where it's units like in the Blood Angels Liberator Assault group, where you can give them a slew of really strong buffs, but their detachment already gives them a decent melee buff. So you might want to be like, okay, I need to really guarantee this unit dies. So this unit of 6 Sanguinary Guard is going to get Lance and Lethal to make sure they kill those 5 scouts. It's like, well, those Sanguinary Guard kill those scouts any day to Sunday, every single time they swing at them. Why do you need to use that extra CP? That, yes, I know in your mind it's making you a bit more consistent, but there's probably a better use for that stratagem somewhere else. Even if they armor of contempt, they're still saving on like 5s or 6s, right? Like it's not likely that they're gonna survive no matter what they do. So your opponent's probably not gonna spend AOC. And yes, you might be nervous that they're gonna be doing that, so you want the extra consistency. But most of the time you don't need it. So it's stuff like that where you're hitting them with a good unit to hit them with. You probably don't need the additional buff unless you're hitting at something that's above their weight class. So say like you're hitting into like Terminators, like, okay, you're going to be saving on 3s. If I don't do something, cool, I'm going to give myself +1 AP. Awesome. That's probably that's a good use. You're not overbuffing, you're forcing them to that invulnerable save, right? So you're trying to get them to the best breakpoint you can. But a lot of the time, I see it so often that people just try and push through as much damage onto you. Like, oh, I overkilled that by 20 wounds. It's like, that to me is just you're not using stuff efficiently, right? In that case, it was like, well, you should have charged 2 units with that unit, or you should have done something else if you're trying to utilize that. Like, if that's what you did and you used a CP to get an additional buff, like, well, what was the point? So yeah, and the other one that I see is using like advance and charge where you don't need to. This isn't a tricky one because some of the advance and charge strats are procced in the movement phase and some of them are in the charge phase. The charge phase ones are great because you've already advanced and you can see what your advance is before you decide are they actually going in or not. Because if you roll a 1 on the advance, you can't just tuck them away and they're not going to do anything this turn. You're waiting for a better roll next turn potentially. Whereas the ones that are, you pick a unit, if they advance this turn, they can still have the ability to charge. Those ones are rough because you got to spend the CP before you know what the dice roll is on the advance roll. They are less of these now, but they still do exist. So you've got to definitely understand that that is something that you have to deal with. But a lot of the times, like, is it worth the risk of rolling a 1 or a 2? Are you actually close enough to make that a value if you do roll a 1 or a 2? Or is it actually better to stage them a bit more aggressively this turn, or like hold an angle or something like that, better than spending the CP to advance and charge, advance and shoot, whatever it might be? So stuff like that is just something to really keep in consideration. Like a lot of the time you spend that CP and it's like, I rolled a 1. It's like, oh, now you're going to spend another command point and you roll another 1. Okay, cool. Now they're going there. So you've spent 2 command points and now you're doing nothing with the unit. It can be absolutely breaking to your entire game plan. So yeah, so not planning to use like offensive stratagems in the correct spaces, or having access to an offensive and defensive stratagem. So like, maybe you don't use it on your turn, but then you can use it on your opponent's turn when they go to fight you, because in prolonged combats, you get to fight before them. So you can maybe have a defensive stratagem have access to in case they charge you. So then you still have a unit left after they charge you or something, and then you can use your offensive stratagem to finish off the unit that you fought and then kill the other unit as well. So it's kind of like a way of being able to plan both sides of a thing. Or if you finished off one unit, instead of like making sure you kill it, sure, they leave one model left alive, but then you can pile into something else, tag up a vehicle or something like a rhino, making sure that that blocks their movement patterns. And then they charge you, you pop your -1 to wound, your armor of contempt, whatever it may be, and then you're able to stay alive and then hit back, and then you can use your command point on an offensive stratagem to really push through the damage. So there's different ways to play it there. But you have to plan for stuff like that. Like, hey, like, I actually don't think I need this damage buff now. I actually might need it on your turn. So stuff like that. Just really trying to think that next turn ahead, the next round ahead. Really, really important stuff to do. And yeah, and then the last thing is just, and this comes with just practice with playing whatever army you're playing and what armies you're playing against, is understanding the damage your unit does. This is really, really important and really difficult to master. Is what was it? Because you got to understand that sometimes you're going to low roll a little bit, and sometimes you have to be accepting of when you're going to low roll, and sometimes you're going to accept when you roll high. You know, be happy when you roll high, but have a plan for when you roll low. It's kind of how I always kind of take it myself. And that just comes with time. That just comes with a lot of practice with whatever army you're playing, and you'll get better and better use out of command points and the offensive and defensive stratagems once you kind of master the damage that you and your opponents can do to each other. So when to buff? When it mathematically helps. Again, so once you understand when your damage profile isn't enough to deal with this thing and you need to eradicate it for whatever reason, then use your damage buffs to do that, or your defensive buffs, whatever it might be. Whenever you're using a buff, put it in the time that it makes the most sense. Don't just willy-nilly use it every time you get attacked. It's like, oh, every time you get shot at, oh, I'm just going to armor contempt this unit because this unit has to survive. Well, does it? Like, or does it survive without armor contempt? Like, or whatever the buff may be. Another really important time to buff things is when you get to hold primary with it. So if you destroy that unit on that objective, your opponent actually doesn't have good retaliation. So you really need to make sure that they're gone. So you do hold the point. That would be an important time to make sure that you are potentially overkilling a little bit to guarantee that point, because you're going to get more tempo out of it because that unit should be alive on your next turn. So you're really trying to make sure that tempo stays in your side. And then the last time would be when your opponent doesn't send enough. So if you're doing like a defensive unit use case, and your opponent only sends like one unit into you, it's like, well, sure, like maybe I'll choose that defensive stratagem and be able to like deal with it, like be able to survive, so then I can hit back, right? So it's like when to buff can be a really like tricky thing to finalize, and I would say it's probably better to overbuff than underbuff, but at the same time, there's a fine line of like, you're spending so many CP when you don't need to, that maybe play a couple of games without using the buffs, like whatever defensive or offensive buffs you have, just to kind of see how the damage feels, and then start using them again, so you really know when you need to be using them. It'd be a really, really good call there. Mistake number 5, no budget. So as I said at the start of this entire video, is you need to have a plan and a budget for your command points. Depending on the mission you're playing, depending on the opponent you're playing, their army, the terrain layout, all this kind of stuff, you need to have a plan for what do you need CP for in this game? What are your loss conditions? What are your win conditions? These are all the most important things you can understand about in the game, and your command point plan, or your command point budget, comes into it at that same time. If you're going into a melee matchup, say I love playing Warhorde Orcs, right? But if I go up into another melee army, I need to make sure I get up to 4 CP as quickly as possible, because then I have access to my guaranteed fight on death, which is 2 command points, and a counter-offensive stratagem, so I can fight like an interrupt. Because what that does is my opponent can only ever fight me with 1 unit at a time, and I still get to fight on death, and then then we both just trade 1 for 1. That's a great trade. That's a fine trade for me. I can keep up with that. But if they charge me with 2 units, it's a 2 for 1 in my favor, because yes, they fight me. I fight on death with that unit, kill that unit as well. But then I get to interrupt, kill that second unit that they fought, and so now I'm up a unit to them. That's absolutely game breaking. That blows the game wide open for me. So it's stuff like that. It's like once you analyze how you need to use your CP, it might be, hey, I need to be able to threaten this sight line for the entire game to make sure that my opponent doesn't use it. So I need to make sure I keep advance and shoot and auto 6 advance always accessible for me. So then I have access to that. So I can be like, hey, like this unit can move 16 inches, see down this line and shoot you if you ever stage there. So it's kind of one of those things. Is like projecting the threat can be really, really important there, but just don't be using your strats willy-nilly. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Don't not have a plan. You need to be throwing like you have to be having your plan. You cannot be just throwing your CP around and just doing whatever you want with them. You need to have this plan, because there is very easy loss conditions that can be avoided by just making sure that you know what they are and how to avoid them, which is, hey, I need to always make sure that this unit is within heroic range, and always have that command point up for heroic, because I have this fight first unit. So then if you can never charge this unit, because I'll heroic with my fight first unit, and then it'll be a real big issue for you. That can be like a win condition or a loss condition if that doesn't happen. So like making sure that you always have that command point in your opponent's fight phase. Really important. And yeah, and it's like one of the main things that can really come up is not being able to, like, this is one of the things I see a lot, is not being able to use a stratagem because of poor planning. Hey, like, you, as I just said, like, I need the heroic to make sure this is not a loss condition, but you get like a kind of juicy Overwatch and you only have the one CP. It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to spend it on this Overwatch. Gets to your opponent's charge phase, they charge that unit, and you're like, oh, now I can't heroic them, so then you beat up that unit, and then I hate it, like, this whole tempo is now shifted this game, and now I lose this unit that I really couldn't avoid. I really lose this game because this is the key piece to winning this game. That's brutal. Okay, I just lost this game because I did this Overwatch. Even if the Overwatch is really good, it doesn't matter if this is a more important place to use that command point. You just have to be like open to that, right? And another thing is like, yeah, using stratagems really early, like using a reactive move when you don't need to in your opponent's movement phase, when they move their first unit, so then you don't have any CP for the rest of your opponent's turn, so then they kind of have free reign. Like, you're giving control over to your opponent as soon as you have nothing you can do in their turn, whether it's moves, defensive buffs, offensive buffs, whatever it might be. If you need access to it, make sure you're not spending it on anything else. You can literally like just have a note on the table with you, be like, hey, make sure I leave X amount of CP for this. And that's all you need to do. And then like, cool. You can even tell your opponents, like, hey, can you just make sure that I never go below 2 CP? You know, and they'll most of the time, like, if you go under 2 CP, like, hey, remember you said you didn't want to go under 2 CP? Most people will be chill about that and be really good and try and help you make sure that you do the thing that you want to do. 40k is a communication game, right? Just communicate with your opponent on stuff like this, and they'll try and help you. But then if you still decide, no, I'm doing it, then it's on you, right? And then the last thing here, not having CP to threaten to the use of strats, right? This kind of comes back to the whole budgeting thing altogether, is if you can't threaten with command points to do things, your opponent has free reign. And as I said, you don't necessarily have to use the stratagems for your opponent to not allow you to use them, which then means you still go up CP and then you can go up to more CP. So you kind of have this great ability to just weirdly farm CP because you end up with, you know, often like 4 or 5 CP, 6 CP, because you didn't need to use them because you threatened them in the correct ways. Hey, like, if you come into in this position here, I can Overwatch you. Okay, your opponent just doesn't do it. You now have a free CP. So why to have a solid CP plan? And how to, so more so how to have a solid CP plan. Think about any way that you can get taxed on CP, so like evict abilities or anything else that can force your command points to cost more or not be able to use stratagems, like the CSM kill team unit, that if it's an engagement range over you, you can't use stratagems, stuff like that. Anything that can tax or your stratagems, really important to make sure that you know what it is, know how to play around it a little bit, and also or put it in, add it into your budget if need be. And once you've like saved your budget, everything above that budget can, like, if you're planned out correctly, everything above that is like is just little extras that you can do whenever and wherever you want. So like, hey, like I want to do a command point reroll there. Excellent. Hey, I want to do an Overwatch there. Cool. Like, as long as you're not going below your threshold for your budget, go for it. And then if you ever need to pay for your budget, it's always there, that your little nest egg that you've invested away until forcing your opponent to either play around it or just playing into it, which can, you know, if it's what you think it is, will win you the game. Awesome stuff. So the last thing is take a minute and just plan. Before a game, take a breath, think about it even before deployment, look at the table, analyze everything, analyze your opponent's list, think about exactly what you need to win the game, what your opponent needs to do to win the game, what you need to do to not lose the game, and anything that stratagem related that has to happen to make sure that those game plans work for you, that you win the game, not lose the game. Really important, and it's always worth to do. It's always worth to take 5 minutes of your clock time. It doesn't matter, to just think about it. You can write it all down. Hey, I need to make sure I can set this up. I need to make sure this unit stays within 6 inches wholly of this unit so I can heroic. This unit needs to be able to control this space so I can always Overwatch this space. All this kind of stuff can be really, really important. I need to be able to rapid ingress this turn because that's the only way they can blow this game open. Awesome. Making sure that you just have that those command points available can be really, really important. And if you have guaranteed or any kind of command point regeneration and stuff like that, can be really great on helping your budget kind of explode. But always don't count on regeneration mechanics, because sometimes they won't pay off, or the character will pass away or something like that. You know, something will happen that will mess with that plan. So try and make it off just the one command point you gain every round or every turn, and kind of go from there. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and a subscribe down below. Comment as well if you if there's anything that interests you about this, any way that you've used command points that's really exciting to see, like how other people are like try and budget, what armies and like what is your budget for command points, and what mistakes that you've made and how you fix them yourself. Be really cool to see. Otherwise, there'll be another video here to watch next. Otherwise, see you guys next time.